Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Keaton Podcast. I'm Max Rabin.
And I'm Mattia Fuso.
Mattia is back with us today. Brent is on a nice family vacation. He was telling me about last night. They're doing the whole Disney World, super experience. I'm both jealous and also okay, that's...
Right, you can go ahead.
Yeah.
We'll be here doing real estate fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, very fun, right?
Yeah.
Today we have Rob Sanders back on the show. Rob Sanders is with, of course, the Rob and Brett group at TTR Sotheby's International Realty. Rob is a veteran agent. Rob is he's one of the best in the business that I know. Well, let's just remind our audience, the Rob and Brent group, in terms of where you guys are in the sphere of real estate. What is your dollar volume this year for Rob and Brent Group?
So our dollar volume right now is up to, we're right around 150 million.
Yeah.
We just had a meeting the other day, and I think we were just shy of 150. Yep.
So okay. I mean, I'm just trying to keep everyone focused on the fact that you guys do not mess around. You guys turn a lot of sides. You guys are big volume producers, and just making sure everyone knows you're awesome.
We're superstars.
Okay. Superstars. Yeah, superstars would be appropriate.
That's probably the appropriate word.
I would say so. Yeah. What is TTR without the Rob and Brent Group? But so I think it's important also to note that Rob's been on twice before. So if you want to go back and listen to some, Rob origin story stuff and know more about Rob, there's plenty of Rob to listen to on the Keaton podcast. But we're happy to have you here today because, things are changing a little bit in the market, and you have been in the market for 20 years. So you've seen some ups and downs. I've been in the market the same amount of time. So it's, we've seen these kinds of things happen. But, so we're just happy to have you back and have you talk about some of these things and how you deal with this kind of change, how it happens.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. It's always good to come on the podcast. And it's been, I've had a few agents reach out to me to tell me that they love listening to our podcast. So that's been great to actually hear that. They're on their morning walks or their jogs. They go, oh, by the way, I just happened to have a podcast on, and I heard, from Trent. Loved listening to Trent, which I actually thought that was a great podcast too.
Yeah.
But as far as the market, a lot of people keep talking about doom and gloom and all that stuff. We're in a recession and everything. I mean, you and I were back in 2008, right? Where back then I would think it was a lot more debilitating as a realtor, because back then nothing was moving, nothing was selling. We didn't know what to do at that point. But here, I don't think we have that situation. We definitely have things moving. I just happened to have put on a property the other day in Arlington, and we had almost 17 showings in 24 hours. So if it's priced correctly, it is definitely going to move. It did go under contract in 24 hours. So the market is slowing down, but things are moving. We're just not getting 35 offers on one property anymore. We're just getting the one offer, and one offer is all I need at this point. So, to me, I think as realtors, we need to go back to the original real estate 101. We've had an entire year of, kind of having not have to really do much, where we would put on a property and there would be 30 offers, and we would sit back kind of high and mighty. Which one are we going to pick? Blah, blah, blah. Well, now we have to go back to the basics, right? Where are we going to go back to, writing our letters, focusing on farming a building, doing what we need to do that we originally did when we first got our license and we were learning real estate. I think in our team, we have 2 recent agents that have been on for about a year, and I'm watching what they're doing. They're still in the basics, whether they're following their curriculum, whether it's following the Ninja plan that they took Ninja, and they're following that. They're reaching out to all their friends. They're taking people to lunch. They're doing a lot of the things that we kind of got away from because we've been spoiled for over a year. So now we're coming back to what we need to do: act as a real estate agent.
So do you think that, compared to the past 2 years, it was so insane and crazy, fast-paced, multiple offers, crazy escalations and so forth. Do you think that obviously now we feel it as a slowdown, but in reality, more than a slowdown, it's just comparing, apples to oranges. It was crazy, crazy market, and now we're down here. Of course, it feels slow because it is slow compared to that.
Right.
But is it just because, we're stabilizing instead of, we're going back to a normal, more, balanced market, which perhaps is a healthy market, some could argue.
So I would say correct. We are balancing out. We're going back to more of a healthy market. It's not that we're not seeing things move. Things are moving. We're just so used to a fast-paced market now. They're moving within 2 weeks, maybe 30 days, but they are moving. We are scheduling closings. Things are happening in real estate. It's just not at that, lightning speed that we're used to.
What, if anything, is the Rob and Brent Group doing right now in terms of marketing, understanding that there's things slowing down? Some of the listings might not be selling as quickly, and some of the buyers may not be as ready, willing, and able as they were a few months ago. What are you guys doing in terms of marketing, if anything, that's changed to make sure you're still hitting all the right people and reaching out correctly?
So we've talked about literally reaching out and talking to your clients, right? Letting them know what's going on. If you give them the information and get them out of what they're reading on the web, all these crazy things about the market is plummeting. If you're in direct contact with them and you tell them what's going on, tell them how many showings you've had. Tell them what the people say. Before, we would never do that, right? We would go, here's 10 offers, choose the one you want. Now we have to have follow-up. If you follow up with your client or even your buyers, like I have a couple buyers right now that I'm not allowing them to be silent anymore. They're getting all of our listings, all of our inventory being sent to them. And if I don't hear from them, I follow up. I'm like, hey, I just want to let you know there's a great ARM product for that. So then what we've done is we've talked to a lot of lenders, and we've been able to get lenders to commit to different programs that, for example, we would never look at before. We were always about a 3.25 30-year fixed. Now we're a 5.125 7 to 10-year ARM. Very attractive product. So right now, what we're doing is talking to our lenders. We've had a couple lunches with our lenders, meeting with lenders to find out what are the programs we can give to our buyers. I'm not going to allow my buyers to remain silent. I'm going to follow up with them and go, what's the problem? Like, what's going on? Tell me what you feel, and they will tell you. If they go, I don't want a 7.25 30-year fixed anymore, I go, I have an answer for you. You're only going to be here for 4 years, and ARM is the product. So now as a realtor, we are actually learning a lot from our lenders. I'm not going to advise my client that I'm a lender. I'm only going to give them the options. I'll let them talk to what lenders they need to, but I think every day I'm talking to a different lender, so I'm able to give more information than to just send them, a virtual tour and go, hey, we should go look at it.
I think you sort of hit the nail on the head with there's an education aspect, particularly right now, because you turn on the TV and you look at the news and it's, mortgage rates here, mortgage rates, so you're taking that information and educating these buyers, because if they just were to turn on the news and just listen to what's going on, it's kind of discouraging, and I think especially if you're a first-time home buyer and you haven't bought a home before, and so all is the rates that we had 2 years ago or last year, you're like, this is the end of it all. But by do that education, I think it's very important.
Agreed.
Well, I also think that I like what you said about talking to multiple lenders. I'm finding that to be also extremely useful right now. Just reaching out to, we all have like our core lenders that we like to work with because we're very competent in their customer service, and we know that how they get the job done. We know when they're going to communicate. But there's a lot of different stuff out here right now. There's different investors coming into the market with different products. There's some investors coming out of the market with their products. So you got to talk to different lenders and really try to help your buyers understand the options.
Very true.
And some buyers are not going to listen right now. I mean, some buyers unfortunately have been that poor sentiment that they might be seeing from the media is going to capture them, and we'll have to wait for them to come back to reality here.
Correct.
But yeah, education from the lender side is huge right now.
And you also have to let them know that, hey, look, you're not paying $800 for that condo anymore. Now you're going to offer, maybe we go in and offer 7.25. So you can't have it both ways, right? You can go in a little bit aggressive, but then you go up a little bit in the rate if you're going to end up paying for an arm or whatever it is. But the majority of these people, especially your first-time home buyers, they're only there from 3 to 5 years. You take that poll to them, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'll be out of here in 4. First dog, first cat, first child." They're gone. They're an RM product all day long.
Yeah.
What were the rates when you started in real estate?
So my first one was in 2001, and it was at Solo Piazza that I bought a condominium, and my rate was 8%.
Okay.
And I didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, 8 is great. And we're like, and my client actually bought in the building, and we were like, oh, 8 is great. And now we're going to be at 8. And so I'm thinking back then, had we been at 8, I would have had, if I was stuck at 8, I would have went with the ARM at 5.125 because the ARMs were offered. Back then, I was a little bit inexperienced. I didn't know that much. I can tell you how inexperienced I was. I called one lender, and they told me out of the blue, 8%, boom, and I went with that lender. Now I'd shop it. I would talk to 4 or 5 lenders. I'd find out what's the best product for me because even though I was a first-time home buyer, I only ended up in that property for 2 years. I should have never agreed to a 30-year fixed. I should have took the ARM.
Right. Yeah. The first property I bought with my sister. It was a condo here in Adams Morgan, and just looking back and thinking of like what you could buy at the time, it was crazy. But the rate was like, it was an adjustable rate mortgage that we got. It was like a 10-year interest-only product ARM.
Yeah.
And the payment was nothing.
Nothing.
It was nothing. And it gives you a false sense of security, but at the same time, we had our approach early on was like, we don't know what we're really doing. We're young. We're just buying this place. It's cool. We just want to keep the payment down. So we really focused on that payment aspect. And I continued to buy adjustable rate mortgages pretty much until this most recent rate environment in the last couple of years. I was always buying adjustable rate mortgages.
We just had lunch with a lender the other day, and the lender came to the office, and he spoke very well, and he goes, guys, it's down to your buyers are going to be whether they are what the total number on the property is, like what the purchase price is, or are they a monthly payment shopper? If they're a monthly payment shopper and they only worry about that monthly payment, we have plenty of programs to get them to that payment-wise. But if they're focused only on the purchase price, that's a completely different subject.
Right. So talking about on the listing side, if you have a listing, there's obviously a variety of different products that we sell. It's like, we talk about listings and properties, but you're talking about a fee simple house, for example, that you guys just listed in Arlington, and you had a ton of showings and it was sold, I think, before an open house. Is it like under contract?
About a day,
Yeah.
24 hours. Yeah.
So that's still like the product that people want the most, like the attractive single family house that's priced correctly, obviously.
Correct.
But let's say you have a condo in like the $1.5 million range. Dollar per square foot makes sense. You comped it correctly. You're getting a couple of showings, but no one's really stepping up. What is that conversation like with the seller? 'Cause I have these. I sell a lot of these condos in this range too,
Yes.
and it's hard to the buyers are coming. They come to look and they don't offer. What are you saying to your sellers right now?
So with a completely different scenario, right? You're talking about a fee simple, very attractive, under $1 million. Of course, that's going to go. We had, when we put it on, people were calling ahead of time versus a 1.5 condominium.
Mm-hmm.
But we're looking at 2 different buyers too. I didn't really look at the buyers for the fee simple, but I guarantee they're first time couple just starting out. Whereas a 1.5 is a different bracket, right? Where a lot of times they have a different scenario financially altogether. The fact that they're not pulling the trigger is concerning, because if we label them as, let's say, being a higher financial buyer, that they have the opportunity to purchase higher, they probably don't look at the rate that much, right? I mean, when they're if you're trying to sell a 1.5 and they're looking at it, they don't really care that much about the rate. So the seller goes, then why isn't it selling? Why isn't it moving? I think at that point, I'm sure you do it, is we will contact the people that have shown it, and we pester those agents. We continue, because that is our job. It isn't just to put a sign out there and go, TTR out front. Our job is to get it sold. And even when we meet with the seller, we go, hey, look, We're going to stay on the potential buyers. We're going to continue to follow up, and we'll call those agents every day. I know Mattia is a good example where he will call them all day long and follow up on a text and an email until they say, please stop. At that point, you've kind of pushed the limit, but it makes me think about, do we have other incentives? When the seller goes, what are you doing? Why hasn't it moved? I'm thinking, do we go back to the buyers and go, look, we know the condo fee in a 1.5 is $1,200 a month. Do we offer, like we did in 2008, we offered 1 and 2 years prepaid condo fees at settlement, right? I mean, maybe that might not be that much, but for people that are looking at the big picture, if they don't have to pay a condo fee for 2 years, maybe that helps, right? Or even the 3% closing cost credit we offer. I mean, there's plenty of things that if you talk to the buyer's agent and you even know them, they'll be able to tell you what the holdup is with them, why they don't like the property. But and the sellers nowadays, at least ours, they're listening to you now. They're like going, okay, give them the 2 years. They're not really saying no. They're really they want to get the product moved too.
Yeah, I had this experience recently with a condo in Penn Quarter, and certainly these sellers are higher net worth. They're under no pressure to sell, but they were kind of just done with owning this property. They had purchased another property out of state. They have another property nearby that they're happy. So the offer that came in, this guy wanted to negotiate heavily. So we just kept the ball rolling.
Right.
And the sellers were game for that. We kept the ball rolling. Then the guy wanted some furniture. They were like, just kept the ball rolling. We got it closed.
Right.
But it's what it took. It's what it took. It took some creativity on both sides.
Right.
And but the will was there.
Correct.
To get it done. That was the key thing.
It's a common goal.
Yeah.
Do you find that currently, so we have the, discouraged buyers, or, maybe first-time home buyers are dealing with the rates and, what's going on. But then we have the buyers that maybe have done this before and are seeing everything that comes on the market as a crazy way to negotiate, a crazy opportunity to negotiate. I mean, we're talking, I've had a buyer recently come in and say, I gave him the comps and I says, this is the price, we're at 750 and he wants to write 600. And the conversation with him, I was like, the prices haven't gone down really, in my opinion at least, and I want to know what you think. Are we just sort of calm? Are they going down? Are the buyers in a position to negotiate that much, or is it still just you have some negotiating power, but let's not think that we're tanking into going down with pricing?
The ultra low ball.
Right, exactly.
Right. A couple of things that you've touched on that I think we should talk about. One, I really don't think the pricing has really hit rock bottom, right? I think there is still room, and I wouldn't blame a buyer, right? What's wrong with it becoming a buyer's market now? It's been a seller's market for 2 years. We need to normalize, let's get back to, maybe 50-50. If I meet with a buyer and they go, I want to go in and take off $100,000 off, the price, I'm fine with that. I encourage it, because in the end, I don't know what the seller's going to do. Good example. There's a $2 million listing on now. I just submitted for my buyer 1.8, 200,000. The agent called me back and says, I don't think we have a response for you. And I put, you don't think, or does the seller not? Have you spoken to your seller? You at this point are a glorified clerical. You can't call me back and tell me that you don't think. Let the seller tell me that he can't think. He doesn't want to do it. So right now, as Max just said, we have an open line of communication. It hasn't ended. Both sides are talking right now. We're going to move up and they're going to come down. But I would not discourage a buyer from submitting. If you have a buyer out there, hold on to them, get that offer in, and let's see what happens. And they're all of the mindset. You have agents out here that are spoiled, that will not write, and I can name a few, which I will not, but that will not write under the asking, or will not write 100,000 off because they don't want to be bothered. They want to go on vacation. They want to enjoy the holidays. They want to do whatever. Well, you're a different kind of agent, right? You enjoy real estate and you want to sell. You're there to represent the buyer at the best possible fiduciary responsibility that you can do. In this case, the buyer wants to come in 100 or even 200. Write the offer. Find out what happens. But it doesn't mean that it's going to end up like Max just touched on, the one in Penn Quarter, over and over and over. But that's where we're at now, right? It eventually closed, and kudos to you, but do what the buyer wants at this point.
we're speaking with Rob Sanders from the Rob and Brent Group, TTR Sotheby's. Rob's here talking about the current market and how he's handling things. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And so I have several of these now. As you were speaking, I'm thinking about another scenario that I have. I have 3 situations of buyers who purchased in the last 2 years. All 3 of them now need to sell. Okay, I have one. It's a house in Columbia Heights. I have another condo in Arlington, which I'm going on a listing appointment tomorrow, and then another one in Michigan Park. So like a fee simple detached house. I mean, all 3 of these parties have purchased their houses, their properties in a market that was, even if it was like 6 months ago, was a higher market.
Right.
So how do you have that kind of conversation? You just bring them the reality, right?
You know, it's funny you mentioned that because we've had a lot of conversations, and I'm always talking to sellers. I went on one in Potomac Yards yesterday, and she is upset that the neighbor's home next to her has been on for 4 months and it isn't moving. And I told her we're going to come on $80,000 under. And she goes, how would you explain that? And I go, well, 1, they're way overpriced. The market has dictated. But I go, 2, you're an original buyer. I go, so you have plenty of equity at this point. I go, the one thing we don't want is what you just mentioned, somebody to call me from the last year and a half who wrote in Bethesda 300,000 over and they want to sell. So you've kind of given me a little bit of thought here to think about, what would I do? And in that case, I do, unfortunately, I go back to what the current comps are, and I use the last 60 days. Now, I'm not going back to 8 months ago. Don't show me stuff from May. Even the lady at Potomac Yards goes, well, this sold in May. I go, ma'am, May is completely different. Now we're looking at the last 60 days. What is sold? Oh, nothing. So, I'm able to bring reality into them.
Nothing.
I just tell them. And I looked at it. I go, I showed up with the comps for 60 days. Nothing has moved in Potomac Yards. Nothing. So, at that point, you do have a pretty good, some clarity coming into it. But, that is a hard question about if they look at you and they tell you, well, I paid, $1 million. Are we going on for $1 million? Probably not. Right. And we're not going on just to put a blue sign out front. We're going on with the current market condition. And at that point, you look at it and find out, and you represented them, did they put 20%? Did they put 25? Did they put 30? Or, they're going to have a little bit of that takeaway is that they're still going to be able to go to closing, but they may lose a little bit. I mean, that's, how many properties have they bought over the years? So I look at,
Right.
have they been your clients for life? You look, well, what about those properties we sold in 2005 where you made 300,000? What about those? Right? So, I mean, people do look at the real estate portfolio. We can't just focus on that one, a home in Michigan, a park, or that one in, Columbia Heights.
Yeah, it's important. Unfortunately, people always seem to focus on like, I don't ever want to lose, and not everything is a winner. It
Correct.
just and real estate's a funny one. Real estate has that mystical quality. Everyone's like, real estate is the best. We sell this.
Right.
The real estate's the best investment. And there are people who are like, no. The stocks are the best investment. It's just it's part of this. It's part of the salesmanship of all of these things. The answer is you can't always win on any one thing every time. It just doesn't happen.
Correct.
It just doesn't happen.
Very true.
So if you put yourself in that position where you're like, oh, we absolutely want this, and in your heart you want something, and you're making that purchase, and you're bidding it up $300,000-$500,000, and the rates change 3%. I mean, there's your reality.
Right.
There's your reality.
Remember when we were in 2005 that when we were doing the fax machines back then, there were fax machines, and that's how we used to work. But there would be 30 offers coming in. We would write 200,000 over. When they had to move in 2008, they weren't getting a dime over what they paid.
Mm-hmm.
So they still were at a break-even point. And that's probably where I'd hit back with your 3 coming up. Are we at a break-even point? They're not going to get the money back on the commission, but are they at break-even on what they paid for it, right?
Sure.
So there is a little bit of talk of reality, but I would stay with the current comps, and hopefully they've been your clients for a while, and you can remind them how much you made when you sold their other properties 4 years ago. So
Yep.
Hey, we were talking in the car just now about the stress of being a real estate agent. This morning we had lots going on, appointments and everything. What for you specifically? I've always wondered. I know you love real estate and it excites you and it gets you out of bed, and you seem to never get tired of it, and you seem to very well deal with bad worse situations. What's the most aggravating thing that a client can do when working with you?
The only thing that it takes a lot to really get me. I'm a happy-go-lucky type, like you said. I get up. I'm like in Pleasantville all day. I absolutely love my life. I love real estate. I love my team. I love the firm. I mean, I'm just, it's almost a little sickening that way. But there are a few things that people can push my buttons, and the main button pusher that a client would do is they continue after you give them like everything. You lay out the report of what's going on, what you've done, how many open houses, how many agents you've called, all the marketing you've done. They start to micromanage you on a daily basis, and then they provide other feedback of what they would want you to do. They've almost not read your whole thing. Like, in other words, you gave them an entire itinerary of what you've done. They'll repeat your itinerary and say, maybe you should, just shows they never read it, right? They quickly right off the cuff. Well, can you go ahead and do this? Can you do more open houses? Can you have open houses Monday through Friday? Like, that's the way I just got that the other day. Why use Sunday? Why not do it on a Friday? So that's where I thank them very much for their input, and they're your clients, so you're loyal to them. But that is probably, and even then I just kind of laughed it off. I'm like, well, we're not having open houses Monday through Friday.
Yeah.
No one's showing up, ma'am. So I mean, at that point,
no one's showing up on Sundays nowadays.
Correct. No one's showing up on Sunday either.
So
Yeah, it's me and my iced tea there all day Sunday. There you go.
Last Sunday I was doing an open house. The property actually we'd had pretty good turnout the first 2 weeks, and this past Sunday was a little light.
Yeah,
a little light. Yeah. Watching the former Redskins game. You know what I mean? It's just I was watching that on my iPhone. Isn't that amazing? TikTok and the way we can stream things. Remember doing open houses when there was no such entertainment?
No, I know. We would just
bring your
walk
reading
around
material.
talking to ourselves.
Yeah.
That's what we would do.
Right.
Literally, when I
Yeah.
was at the Potomac Yards 2 weeks ago, I walked in. It was pouring down rain. I thought, oh, here we go, gloom and doom. I pulled up. I thought, you know what, Robert, you're going to turn this open house out. So I turned every light on in. I got all the TVs on every floor going. I had the music going, all that. Not one person showed up. But when I walked out, I go, you had a great day today.
Yeah.
You really enjoyed this 2 hours. I did. I actually ordered Panera and had it delivered. So,
That's
it was a
nice.
great day.
God, think of how many Sundays at light open houses, man.
Yeah.
It's
But
a
I remember,
commitment.
it's kind of a breath of fresh air, right? Because when one couple does come in, you have the time to devote. Because
Sure.
remember how many times that we've done them, let's say a year and a half ago, where 30 people would come in.
Right.
And we always felt a little guilty that whoever got you first, right? They would monopolize your conversation, and other people would pass you. And you always felt like you couldn't talk with them.
Yeah.
Now I kind of enjoy the fact that maybe I only get 5. They'll come in. I can talk with every one of them now. I give them the amount of time that they deserve.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, because of the changing market. Rob and I just did an open house together, and we had probably 20 people. This is in Maryland, and we had 20 people through, and I would say that half of them lingered for a long time. I mean, we're talking like 20, 25 minutes, looking at the yard, looking at every little aspect, asking the right questions that 6 months ago would tell me this is a multiple offer situation. People were asking me, is there a deadline? All the right questions. After the open house, I'm thinking, okay, these people are going to go. They're going to come back with their client, with their buyer's agent, and show it. Nothing. Not a single showing after the open house. So that kind of is telling of that is sort of a changing.
Yep, I'm getting that. So you are, one of the leaders of your team, and obviously, I don't really ever think of you as someone who's ever struggling. But but even in a tough market, or when markets are good, we can have our slow periods where we're like, what is going wrong, right? So who holds you accountable, like when you're not producing at the level that Rob Sanders is supposed to be producing it?
So, Brett and I, we really hold each other accountable. We talk every day, and now I have a phenomenal team that I think they kind of hold me accountable too, right? Like they'll hear me walking through. I'm like, what am I going to do today, or what's going on? Like, or I'll ask them what they're doing. I think when I even kind of, I'm not a micromanager, but if I talk to my team and find out what they're doing, and it kind of pushes back on me too, like, well, I didn't think about, writing letters. I didn't think about, what, Michael's doing, what Leslie's doing. And it kind of makes me reevaluate when I get up in the morning, like, oh, what are you going to do today? Should I work a few expireds, right? Like, when's the last time Rob Sanders worked any expired ones? Well, you know what? Maybe he is this year. Like, maybe my November and December will be all the expired ones that didn't sell, right? Just because another firm couldn't sell it doesn't mean that TTR can't, right? Doesn't mean that we can't do it. And a lot of times these agents, they do get stale, they get tired, and they don't want to do it. If it hasn't moved in 90 days, they're done. They've thrown in the towel. They're not going to have an open. They're at the gym. They're, they're living their life. I'll call the seller and I'll go, hey, look, second go around. We're going to come in refreshed. We're ready to go. Maybe we'll sell it. Maybe we won't. But at least give us a chance. So I start thinking about a lot of expireds and things like that. But I know Brett and I kind of hold each other accountable. And I think it's kind of good because we all generate like a competition with everyone. And I mean competition with all of our agents in the firm. And if I hear that, Max, you got something under contract really quickly, I'm like, what about me? Or
Yeah,
my
I always feel like that.
Yeah.
Totally.
We look at, because we have a 1.9 condo on now, and it hasn't moved. And I'm looking at, I go into the market and I say, why hasn't it moved? And I look back and go, well, it's because the last unit that ever sold in 3 months, it hasn't been over 1.2. So I kind of bring myself back into reality. But then I'll check like my WFP people. I'll look at what, maybe Daryl Judy's doing, Akira Epstein. I'll look at Trent Heminger. I'll look at their book of business and I'll be like, wow, their stuff is moving. What's going on here? So I'll reach out to them and we'll have a quick chit chat and find out what they're doing. So
have you set a goal from now until the end of the year? I mean, we're almost at the end. What is it? November next week, which is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So we got 2 months, but really
Tuesday.
it's not, because once it's December 15th, to me, it's we're
Very quiet.
we're done. So
Right.
do you have a short-term goal for that time? Whether it's listings that you have on the market or buyers that you want to wrap up before the end of the year.
So I always have a $5 million a month that I always say I want to do $5 million a month. I think now I'm listening to my own, words of advice here that I'm telling my clients. I just want to have like a 1.5 million month. So my goal for November would be 1.5 and December 1.5, and I'm looking at ways that I can approach that goal. So I think that's a more realistic goal at this point, to end with 3 million. And I'm sure Brent and I would be happy with that.
I just wanted to mention something about following up. I don't know if I read it recently or heard it on another podcast, but when things are lightening up, so to speak, with buyers, especially like your looser lead buyers, maybe it's a personal referral, maybe it's something from a lead source. You get these referrals and you start following up with them. You're like, hi, I'm here to help you. What do you need? You want to ask about this property? Are you scheduling a showing? Are you working with other agents? The usual questions, right? I use Follow Up Boss now to follow up with all these leads that I get. Again, no matter what level of lead, if it's like the super hot lead, the internet lead, they're going into the system, and then I'm going to put them on like a task list, right?
Right.
So sometimes when I get to about the 10th follow up, I start going like, this is dead. This has got to be dead. Not so sure about that anymore. I think what I've started to do is go back to these ones. It's like, it's been 2-3 weeks, haven't heard anything. I didn't do the last follow up. I'm hitting them again. I'm just going to keep hitting them, because if you don't, we can guarantee what's going to happen. Nothing.
Correct.
You're totally right. We just talked about this because we sit next to each other in the office, and I have a buyer who I've met with. Now have showed her several
if you
properties.
Actually physically met with them.
I've met her.
Okay.
Yeah, so I am
that's
sort
huge.
of at a level, I'm like, okay, we've established she knows who I am. We've now seen, 2-3 properties together. And every time there's something pops up, I send it to her. What about this? And it's like, no response. Ignore. I try text, email. Hi, how are you? Hi. And then, and I show Rob, I'm like, look at this. It's like, I've gone 7 times. And then on the 8th time when I'm like, you know what, I know this is it. She starts responding.
There you go.
Hey, how are you? I've been great. And I'm like, where have you been?
Yes.
Like,
It's funny that he is a follow-upper. He literally stays on these people. And when he writes, like some will go, please remove me from the list. Please stop bothering me. My response, instead of being like, wow, how dare them, I always go, I really admire your diligence that you continue, that, you are an aggressive agent that way that continues to push and push and push. And they finally do respond, either one way or the other. Please leave me alone, or
Sure.
yeah, let's go look at property.
I'd rather have a response than
Absolutely.
no response. Like,
Yeah.
tell me to, go F yourself.
I mean, we've definitely all been on the other side of that, though, where we're being follow-up with follow-up. Is that a verb? I guess it is. Like you're getting these follow-ups from a marketing company or someone trying to sell advertising.
Car dealership.
Whatever,
Right.
all of the above, and like you ignore you. So we do this too
We
to the
do.
other salespeople out in the world, right?
Right.
But
do.
real estate's one of those funny things where I don't know. There's a little more weight to it, right?
Yeah.
You're like the realtor following up, and I think people appreciate it.
Yeah.
Even if they're not responding, they're seeing it. And follow-up boss is an interesting one because on the emails you can see the opens.
Yeah.
And if they clicked on it,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Like open 3 times. Like
Yeah.
they read
Right.
the email 3 times and didn't respond. You're like,
Right.
keep going, keep going.
And remember, that is our job, right? As a
Yeah.
real estate agent, that is our job. It isn't just to say, oh, we're going to go and collect a fat commission check that people obviously assume. There is definitely work behind it. And right now, when the market is slow, we are doing exactly what you just said, following up and calling people and just staying on them, because people have to live somewhere, right? There are buyers out there. Buyers are willing, once they get to that kind of warm and fuzzy point where they want to go ahead and submit an offer, they will, and they need someone to continue to follow up with them, because a lot of agents will not bother. They will go out on their vacations, and like Christmas is coming up, right? I mean, the holidays in December, and Michael Rankin always told me, our owner and founder here, he always said, Jonathan, both of them, our founder, they always say, hey, look, if you're around at the holiday time and you have a buyer out there, these are serious buyers. Do not go anywhere. Work with them. And I've always maintained that, and I always end up in December doing really good sales because I don't go away. My family is in Maryland, and I can drive 15, 20 minutes, spend the day with them, come back. But when the buyers are out, any agents are available to call in my group and say, can you go show property for them? Yes, I will, because those buyers are hardcore buyers, and they will follow up, and they will purchase. So keep that in mind with the approaching holidays.
Rob Sanders, thanks again for coming out today and talking about the changing market. And I liked how we added on like a positive note, just reminding we're always here to continue following up and making the business happen. And that's what we have to do anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
So Mattia's going to hit you with some rapid fire, and then maybe we'll do some like free word association. What do you
Okay.
think?
I'm
Okay.
good.
Let's
All right.
do it.
Thank you.
So what music do you listen to in the car?
So music for me is, 1 minute I could be listening to the jazz channel. Next I could be, pop, listening to Dua Lipa,
My favorite.
yeah, your favorite happens to be, yeah, I love Dua Lipa.
My
So,
favorite.
There we go.
there we go.
What's your favorite show to binge watch right now?
The Crown. I just started watching The Crown. I
It's a great
finished
show.
watching, what's that dragon thing? The
House of Dragon.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
I finished
Game of
watching that, and now I'm into The Crown.
Yeah, that's a great show. I think you use Instagram, and when you're on Instagram looking at your social media feed, what everybody has different things that pop up that Instagram thinks you like. What shows up on your
So mine
Instagram
has
feed?
been Italy. I've been watching Italy. I actually clicked on their channel, and it's every day there's a beautiful sight of Italy, whether it's the water or a castle, or it literally is that good where I want to go there. Like, I'm fascinated by watching, and I've heard from the last 5 agents, they've all gone to Italy for vacation. So I think it's in my up and
future.
coming in my future.
Manifest it.
But maybe you can ask me next year where I'm at. I'll be in Italy.
Right on. All right, I'm just going to give you words, and you just give me one word back. Okay, whatever comes to Rob's mind.
Okay.
Success.
Michael Rankin, Jonathan Taylor,
Right on. Perseverance.
Robin Brent,
Attitude.
Robin Brent, the whole team.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to work on that piece.
okay.
I'm just testing this out on you.
Okay.
But thanks for playing along.
Thank
all right?
you.
And Rob, thanks again for coming out, man.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
so
me.
much.
Appreciate you.